The surgery was successful. He is out of danger now. As the doctor's words reached your ears, relief washed over you and your in laws. Saltiness dripped down your eyes along with a shaky breath. Your hands reached out to your bloated belly where your 7 month fetus resided. Your knees trembled and you sought some support to maintain your composure. Your mother in law held you by your shoulders and guided you towards the nearby bench. Can we meet him? He asked, relief evident in his tone. When he got the news that his son got into a terrible accident, his whole being trembled from inside. But he pushed his emotions aside when your and his wife's crying face came in his line of vision. We are shifting him into a private room. You can meet him afterwards, but remember, one person at a time. The doctor gave a warm smile and left. How amazing doctors are. We see them nothing less than gold. How firmly we trust them with our loved ones' lives. They bring extreme happiness in our lives, sometimes by welcoming a new life, sometimes saving the old life, sometimes fighting battles with us, and sometimes helping our lost self to find ourselves. However, in all of this, we forget that doctors are humans too. They can save lives, but they can't bring back the dead. They can't change the inevitable bitter truth of life. They deserve respect because they earned it by years of struggles, by their blood, sweat, and tears. Why careful? She exclaimed with concern as you rushed towards Chairman's room with rushed steps. But you paid no heed to her words. You saw him once when he was unconscious. After that, your mother in law forcefully took you home. Though you insisted to stay with him, her concern about you and the baby made you surrender. However, when your father in law informed that he gained his consciousness, you couldn't wait anymore and rushed into the hospital. You barged inside the room. Jimin's mom followed closely behind. All the three males, the doctor, Jimin's father, and Jimin's attention shifted towards the sudden commotion. Your gaze fell on Jimin, who was looking at his mother. A boyish grin edged across his face. He looked weak, white bandage covering almost all of his head, few cuts here and there on his face, few scratches peeping out of his light blue hospital uniform, and many of them hidden beneath it. Mom, I'm fine. His groggy voice barely managed to reach everyone's ears. The lack of energy and water in his system was evident with his tired eyes and dry, chapped lips. Yeah, I can see that, she mocked, sarcasm dripping down her tone. The mother son duo shared a unique relationship. Healthy sarcasm and taunts were their love language. Mom, he was about to say something but halted when his eyes fell on you. You wiped your tears and smiled slightly. He scowled and looked back at his mother. Mom, what is your best friend's daughter doing here? A frown edged across your face. Was he joking at this serious moment? You felt your in law's eyes at you. They were equally confused. You. He fell silent when his eyes fell on your visible baby bump. His eyes enlarged in shock. What is this? When did this happen? He pointed at your belly. Your heart sank to your stomach hearing him. Did he really forget about the baby? You felt overwhelmed with hurt and rage. Those mixed feelings were the blessings that came along with pregnancy. Jimin, which year is this? The doctor spoke, intervening the intense silence that hung heavy in the air. January 2022? He replied casually, as if it was the most absurd questions anyone asked him. The doctor smiled. All right, take rest. He glanced at your in laws and signaled them to follow outside. You looked at him, looking at your protruding belly with sadness. Gulping down your grief, you followed them outside. For what his situation seems like, he got short term amnesia. Don't worry, he will get his memories back, but let him take his time. Don't overwhelm him. And he paused and looked at you. Avoid disclosing the truth of your marriage and pregnancy for now. He smiled warmly and gently patted your head before walking away from there. Mom, he forgot about our baby. You complained in a meek tone, tears pooling in your eyes. No, sweetheart, don't cry. He will gain his memories back. When he will do it, I'll whoop his for making my daughter cry. She skillfully distracted your thoughts. By then, she got used to your throwing tantrums. Mom, I'm so excited. You chirped, your enthusiasm evident in your voice and on your face. The sole reason of your happiness was Jimin. He was returning back from hospital after a week. As you heard the sound of car pulling over in the driveway, you became animated and jolted up from the couch, a grin never leaving your lips. Home, sweet home, he sang loudly, stepping inside the living area, his father behind him. He was looking better than before, insinuating his fast recovery. The numerous bandages were replaced by small ones, and the glow was back on his face. Out and out, he was back to his old self, of course, with a major portion of his life wiped off from his head. How are you feeling now? Amazing. Wait, what is she doing here? He scolded when his eyes fell on you. You rolled your eyes and crossed your arms against your chest. I live here. Your short and curt reply made him frown in confusion. Why? Don't you have your own house? His demeanor stated that your relationship was back on square one, the same old enemies relationship which bloomed into a love story later on. I have, but my parents shifted overseas with my brothers, and I can't live alone in this condition, so here I am. And I think you shouldn't have any issue with me staying here. You don't own this house. You retorted back. If he could be a jerk like before, you could be a bad. Then where he prepared himself to counter back, but his father intervened in between. Jimin, I told you the accident led you into short-term amnesia. You forgot the last 2 years. There's a lot happened during that span of time. Instead of investigating about everything, let your brain relax and absorb everything bit by bit, okay? Jimin stared at you for some time and tore his gaze away, nodding his head. Go and freshen up. He patted his shoulder. Jimin smiled and made his way towards his room, not forgetting to glare at you on the way, which you returned with the same intensity. You too, freshen up and take some rest. You hadn't slept properly since a week, she said to her husband. He nodded and turned towards his room, patting your head on his way. As the man disappeared inside their room, you looked at your mother-in-law. Let's prepare delicious lunch for them. As you both took a step towards kitchen, Gemma's loud voice stopped you in your track. Mom! He emerged out of his room, holding a woman's dress, precisely your dress. Whose dress is this? And there are more in my closet. Who kept these clothes in my wardrobe? He chided, his voice filled with annoyance. Those clothes are mine, you replied, snatching your dress from his hand, with which he was holding it as if it was a mop cloth. And what are your clothes doing in my very own personal space? He sarcastically lamented, emphasizing on few words. Because I live there, of course my clothes will be there too. You gave him a tight-lipped smile. He scoffed in disbelief. Who gave you the permission to use my room? I did. Jimin's mother, who was a mute spectator of the whole scenario, stepped forward. Mom, you? But why? He whined in frustration. Because your room is downstairs. Vine is pregnant, so it is more convenient for her. She inwardly sighed for coming up with a quick excuse. And what about me? He pointed at himself, showing disappointment. There are plenty of rooms upstairs. Take whichever you like. A look of disbelief marked Jimin's face as he glanced between his mother and you, both smirking at him. The look of victory on your face didn't settle well with him. But why should I leave my room? She can go back to her. Okay, I'm leaving. He dashed out of there when he saw his mother removing her slippers. Stubborn brat. His father is a saint. I wonder why he is like this. She uttered, shaking her head in helplessness. You chuckled and instantly pressed your lips to stifle your laughter when she darted her gaze at you. I know you want to say he inherited it from me, right? You shook your head in negation. I didn't say anything. But you wanted to. You know you have acquired some of your husband's trait by living with him. You smiled sweetly and wrapped your hands around her arms. Mom, you're the sweetest. I'm not like your bratty son. Let's go and prepare food, my ethereal beauty. Stuffing a handful of chips in your mouth, you laughed loudly watching cartoons on the screen. However, your joy didn't last longer when Jimin plopped beside you and changed the channel. Invisible horns grew on your head, and you felt smoke leaking out of your ears as rays coursed through every nerve of your body. I was watching cartoons, you gritted out, barely holding yourself from pouncing on him. Your pregnancy hormones were playing with your mind, resulting you being moody most of the time. So, he briefly glanced at you before looking at the screen where a zombie movie was going on. If you are so eager to watch cartoon, go and look yourself in the mirror. You're looking nothing less than a cartoon with this red nose of yours. He laughed as if he had cracked centuries' best joke. You hated it. You hated arguing with him. You were addicted to his husband version, which was lovely, caring, flirty, and a big pervert. You missed the time he would crack lame jokes which made you cringe and laugh at the same time. Mom, he is not letting me watch cartoons. You used your most powerful weapon and poked your tongue out at him. He scoffed and remained unfazed of the storm awaiting him. Within few moments, his mother emerged out of the room and stood in front of him with her hands placed on her hips. Why are you always annoying this poor girl? Let her what she wants. Poor girl? She's a cunning witch, and why should I let her whatever she wants? It's my house. I have rights. His jaw dropped when she snatched the remote from him and handed it to you. This is not fair. I'm leaving this house right at this moment. He jolted up and made his way upstairs. The front door is opposite side, she said, crossing her arms against her chest. He turned around. A look of betrayal crossed his face. I will file a case of discrimination on you. I am getting bullied in my own house. And no, I'm not leaving. This is my father's house. He huffed in frustration. He is my husband before being your father. About the case, go ahead and watch me abandoning you on streets, she said, leaving him dumbfounded. Wow, Mom, for your best friend's daughter, you are abandoning your own son. Well, this is the harsh truth of life. You come in this mundane world alone, leave it alone too. These materialistic possessions won't go along with you but your good deeds. You giggled silently as he switched to his dramatic mode, preaching everything like a saint. Now that I have realized the harsh reality, I don't want to live with these possessions. I'm going to mountains to become a monk. He dramatically shook his head and let out a huge sigh. Very good idea. I will donate your clothes then because you won't need them. Also, you need to shave off your head. Let me do it for you. She removed her slipper and strode towards him. His eyes went round and he ran around the house to save himself from her. Take it, you brat. She aimed her slipper at his head, which he successfully dodged. Jimin's father, who had just returned back after an exhausting day at office, watched the slipper flying in his direction. His eyes widened and he instinctively bent down. A relieved sigh escaped his lips, when the slipper flew over his head and fell on the floor behind. Then he noticed the commotion in the living area. His fuming wife stood at one corner. Other side was occupied by his son who was laughing his heart out at who knows what, and you in the middle, enjoying the drama with some snacks. Vian, I brought pastries for you. Come, let's have it together. Ignoring the daily drama of mother-son duo, he escorted you out of the living room, quietly sneaking inside the kitchen. See, Mom, you can't even. His words were left unsaid when his mother's slipper landed on his head. Don't forget I'm your mother, barked Jimin. She flipped her hair and stormed towards the kitchen to give an earful to her husband. How dare he not ask her for pastries knowing how much she loves them? You woke up with an urge to have something spicy. Glancing at the clock, you saw it was 2 in the night. Waking your in-laws at this hour did settle well with you, so you suppressed your desire and tried to go back to sleep. Tossing and turning for a few minutes, when you couldn't shake off the thought of food from your mind, you sat upright. With great difficulty, you rose from the bed and made your way towards the certain someone who should satiate your cravings after leading you in this condition. Stepping inside his room, you found him sprawled on the bed. You felt a sudden rush of anger in your head. How could he sleep so peacefully after impregnating you? Shouldn't he be your side every moment? Sitting on the edge of the bed, you shook him by his shoulder. Jimin, wake up. He sighed and returned, but didn't open his eyes. Wake up, sleepyhead. He squirmed on his spot and slowly opened his eyes. With his half-open eyes, he noticed you and smiled lazily. Hi, my dream girl. He murmured lazily and again closed his eyes. Your eyebrows twisted as a smirk made its way to your lips. He once confessed that he used to dream about you, so he was again dreaming about you. Hey, wake up. You poked his shoulder. He annoyingly opened his eyes and jolted up, noticing you sitting there. You are actually here? He shuddered, avoiding your teasing glance. Yeah, were you dreaming about me? Excuse me? Why would I? You are not that beautiful, he grimaced, though he couldn't stop redness coating his cheeks. What are you doing here at this time? Go back to no, my room, he uttered and proceeded to lie down on the bed, but you held his arm, raised his eyebrows in questioning manner when you darted your puppy eyes at him. I am hungry. Make me a burger. Your lips involuntarily puckered out in a pout. He switched his gaze from your puppy eyes to your lips and looked away. Why should I? Go and make it yourself. How can I? I'm pregnant, see? You pointed at your baby bump. He followed your direction and sighed deeply. Fine, let's go. He rose from the bed. You grinned like a child and clasped his hand. He glanced at your grinning face and then at your intertwined hands. A smile broke out on his lips without him knowing. 2 burgers, no, 3. You smiled widely as he slipped on the apron, all set to satiate your midnight cravings. He started collecting the necessary ingredients, leaving the cabinets open. Here, have it until I prepare burgers for you. He passed you an energy bar. You happily munched on the energy bar, looking at him cooking. Within few minutes, he was done with his work. Here, your 3 burgers. You took a bite and closed your eyes in ecstasy. It tasted like heaven. Jimmy smiled watching you eat. However, his smile faltered when his eyes moved down to your belly. There were obstinate questions roaming in his head, but every time he held himself back from asking. Why? He commenced, hesitating to speak further. You hummed. Your whole direction was on filling your stomach. Where is the father of your baby? I mean, I haven't heard anything about him. Neither he visited you, not even once. You stopped eating and looked at him. He forgot about us, you replied monotonously. He gasped inaudibly, now feeling guilty. Your pained expressions made his heart clench painfully. What an who forgets about his own family? I wish wherever he is, he hit his head and fell down on the floor. He gritted out and turned around to grab a water bottle, but as he did so, he hit his head with the cabinet door and fell down on the floor with a thud. You blinked your eyes, processing the situation, and got down from the chair. Rounding the counter, you watched the sight unfolding. He was on the floor, staring at the ceiling aimlessly. Stifling your laughter, you asked, "Are you okay?" He looked at you and smiled sarcastically. "I have never been this much okay my whole life." He glared at you when you burst into heaps of laughter and pushed himself on the floor. You settled on your previous spot, still giggling to yourself. He occupied the space beside yours, rubbing his forehead. "Apply some ice on it if it's hurting too much." "No, it's fine." You shrugged your shoulders and proceeded to grab the last burger. Cutting it into two equal halves, you passed one part to him. "Eat it. I can only finish this one." He took it from you and galloped it in just two bites. All this while, his eyes were fixated on your baby bump. He could see the baby's movements through your well-fitted white t-shirt. "Can I?" He pointed at your baby bump. You smiled and nodded. He placed his palm where the baby was hyperactive and grinned ear to ear as he felt small kicks beneath his touch. "She is playing football inside." Your eyebrows twisted in confusion. "She? How do you know it's she and not he?" "I don't know. I just got this feeling." Shrugged his shoulder, kissing your baby bump, his eyes never moving away from there, not for a second. "Why do I feel like it has happened before too?" he murmured as he got some faint flashbacks of the same situation. "Perhaps you dreamt about it with your dream girl," replied, a gentle smile curved on your lips. "Before his accident, you used to wake him up every other day due to your weird cravings, and he, being the loveliest husband, cooked for you without any complaints." A comforting silence settled in between as you lay your head on his shoulder, relishing the closeness with your husband after a whole month. He didn't push you either, instead leaned his head above yours and closed his eyes. His musky scent, mixed with his body fragrance, calmed your senses and pushed you in your dreamland in no time. As he felt your body relaxing against his, he opened his eyes and looked at you. "Sleepyhead," he shook us silently and rose from his spot. Gently cradling you in his arms, he made his way towards your room. Laying you down on the bed, he covered you with the comforter. You instantly snuggled in the warmth of the quilt. He smiled at the adorable sight and settled down beside your sleeping frame. His hands reached out to tuck few hair tresses behind your ear. "That don't deserve you and the baby," he mumbled and hesitantly leaned down to your forehead. Placing a chastity kiss on your forehead, he proceeded to do the same with your baby bump and giggled when he felt the hyperactive moves of the baby. "Good night." Rising from his spot, he switched off the light, leaving one lamp on, and quietly stepped towards the door. Halting at the threshold, he glanced at your peaceful face with a smile and exited the room.